name is Brian Gillvray. I went to Oswin Avenue School between the years of 1946 to 1950. I was born in Burton Avenue at Balby. My father's name was Norman Samuel Gillvray. My mother's name was Ethel May Gillvray. And we lived there until the time when the Germans bombed Woodfield School. But we left Burton Avenue and moved to 82 Carhill, Balby. I had to move from Woodfield School to King Edward School at Balby. And my dad was a plumber, and he worked for a firm called Walter Firth at Armthorpe. And my mother, she worked at Pegler's in the plating shop. My dad was one of the plumbers that put the spire on Christ Church, as it was built without one. And my mother also, she had two jobs. She worked in Pegler's in through the day, and at night she was an usherette at Windsor Cinema and Balby at the end of Oswin Avenue. I have one brother, Norman Gillvray, and he's 4 years younger than me. We both grew up together. We both went to Oswin Avenue School. He left and became a plumber. I left school and became a joiner. To the landmines that fell on Woodfield Estate, we being young, me and Ray Oldham, we went scattering and digging through the rubble of the houses. Now we didn't know at this particular time, but we were acting dangerous because there was also a bomb called incendiary bomb. And these were about 2 foot long, be about 4 or 5 inches diameter, and as such, they could explode at any time. But we went digging in there, and I came out, and my first choice from there was a pram with 3 wheels and a doll with no head. And I got mocked because I picked these up and brought them home. But basically, 2 or 3 of my friends who I knew up there got killed. We used to sit in our garden and watch German bombers go across to bomb Rotherham and Sheffield, and we could see the glow in the sky of Rotherham and Sheffield burning. We also used to get what we call doodle bugs, V2s and V1s. They used to make a noise like drrrr, and they went across and had flames coming out at back, and we could see them going across. Basically, they tried to get Doncaster Plant Works and Loco, but they missed. There were some shops on the right opposite Doncaster station, and a bomb fell flat on there, and that's where we used to get our pens and ink for school. It completely destroyed them, and it also damaged the theatre, the Grand Theatre. It cracked all the walls and did damage to it. On the other side, they tried to hit Benberg's factory, because Benberg's on Weekly Hall Road made all the silk for parachutes. And I have a sample of that silk from Benberg's now in my fireplace. That is the last remaining of the silk from Benberg's factory. And they were aiming for Benberg's factory, and what they did, the bomb landed in the middle of my future wife's street, and it damaged houses and everything and blew a big hole in the road. Doncaster had a prisoner of war camp in the middle of the racecourse. There were German and Italian prisoners of war in there. Us being at school, there were shorter people on the land, so we used to get what we called breaks in our schooling, where we used to go out onto the land and pick potatoes, peas, anything that wanted picking. The prisoners of war off of the Doncaster prisoner of war camp, they also came out in lorries. Now they were dressed in like a fawney coloured suit, and they had a circle on the back split into segments of different colours. Now these people all mixed on the prisoner of war camp, and we became very friendly with them. They were very friendly, but what happened was we got friendly with them as to such a point that they started telling us about their experiences of the war and what they'd gone through, and also the fact that our soldiers here left the radio on. They were listening to the news of their cities being bombed, and they were really worried. And I know of 2 occasions where one in particular jumped off the back of a lorry under another one that were following him to try and commit suicide. It didn't work. Anyway, the thing is, we got very friendly with these prisoners of war, and one of them made me a model of a warship. It was an Italian warship. My future wife, Jean, she were very friendly with one there, and he made a ladder that about a foot high, and this clown climbed up the ladder, did a loop-the-loop, and then came back down. We used to really have a nice talk to them. There were 3 prisoners. There was Italian, very friendly. There was Germans, very friendly. But if you got one that had been a member of the Nazi Party, stay away. You were not welcome at all. Now again, Oswin Avenue School, as you stand at the front of school, on the right-hand side, there was what we call the half acre. That was our sports field. The sports field was covered in wooden huts, and there was Land Army girls on there. Now these Land Army girls, yes, we used to know them, we used to talk to them, and they were very friendly people, and they used to go out on the fields doing what we were doing. So one helped the other. We got friendly with them, and when we weren't doing school, but all the time we had to stay at arm's length because they had a job to do, and they were driving tractors and stuff. Because we were only young, we were told to stay away from combined harvesters and anything mechanical. Going back to Oswin Avenue School, we had teachers there that all had specific duties to do. Mr. Green was music, R.V. Taylor was maths, and we had Bedlington that taught woodwork and practical work. Mr. Dixon, who was second in command there, and if you got caught running down the corridor, he would, in no small words, shout, "Ew!" And you had to stop, go back, and he gave you a piece of pipe, and it was, you had to run round the quadrangle 20 times. Mr. Mason was the headmaster, and as such, he was a very good headmaster, but because I had a problem with my health, I couldn't join in a lot of activities. Needless to say, I was punished by some of the other pupils. You must remember, when I went to school, in my time, we got kids from Hope House and certain areas of Doncaster that weren't nice to know. They were rough, in my words, and as such, they used to take, because I got new uniforms and everything I wanted, they used to have a go at me, and because of my health, so they used to put things in my desk. One day I went to school and somebody got round, and Mr. Green this was, and he said, "I have reports that somebody has stolen a picture of a railway engine out of somebody else's desk." So he said, "All desks up." And well, I knew nothing about this at all. So I opened my desk and I went sifting through and found this picture under my thing. I got branded a thief, sent to Mr. Mason, who was the headmaster, and got 5 strokes of the cane, and told to write out I must not pinch off my fellow students 50 times, I think it was. I could hardly write because of my hand hurting. Then again, we were in the cloakroom, and somebody informed somebody that something had been pinched. We went to the cloakroom where all his coats were hung up there, and it was in my pocket. Again, I got caned 5 times, and I must not steal off my fellow students. Then Mr. Mason, he found out what were going off, and he called me in and apologised for the treatment I got. He said he was sorry and gave me off for that. Now, Mr. Green, after a while, he was so impressed with how I sang, he put me and another lad called Les North forward to sing in Christchurch Choir on Thorn Road, which we did. We sang there in the choir. We also made 2 or 3 records at our school on his Master's Voice records. Playing Mr. Bedlington, he taught me to be a joiner, and he taught me a lot of good stuff, and he said, on my reports, to be quite honest, everything said he could do better. But when it came to woodwork and practical stuff, I got full marks. Now, we also had R.V. Taylor. Now, he could play the piano, and he was second to none playing the piano, and he used to get up and sing us real modern tunes and stuff like that, and I said we all enjoyed it. He used to get us all in the hall and we played tunes to him, and I said it was really good. He weren't there very long, Mr. Douthwaite. He took an interest in everybody, and we all were invited to write stories and stuff like this. So I wrote a play called Willie the Whitewasher by Slap It On & Co. And he put it on the stage in front of all school, and we all got clapped and everything for it, and we got a present for it, you know. It was really good. It was, you know, the experience. Now, Mr. Mason, he was the headmaster of the school, and he was a very, very fair man to talk to. You could walk in and talk to him, and if you did anything wrong, you got punished, which nobody complained. I never complained, even though he gave me cane a couple of 3 times. I never complained because my policy is if you do wrong, you get punished, and it still is today. And he was an headmaster that were very fair. If you did anything wrong or you weren't performing well, he would ask you to go in, and he would discuss, why aren't you doing your, you know, what's wrong? And he would discuss any problems that he had with you, and he was really a good headmaster. After so long, he used to have a look at when the teachers made your reports out at end of year. He would have a look at the people that had got problems, such as myself, because of my health and that, and he made sure I weren't being penalised for having asthma. He made sure that I didn't get penalised in my report for that. He also gave you praise if you did well in any subject. He was just a very, very good headmaster. And he was followed on by R.V. Taylor, who in turn was a different person altogether. He was more relaxed. He didn't cane anybody, as I know. And he was very, very fair. He was a light-hearted type of person. He took a job serious, but he didn't overwhelm you with, I'm the headmaster. He was part of the system, and as such he played a very good part in it. My recollections of him were a really good headmaster, and but I didn't get to know a lot about him because he kept himself in his office a lot, and unless there was any problem, you never saw him. He's not like Mr. Mason. He'd come round and see, he'd poke his nose through the classroom door and say, everything all right? But R.V. Taylor, no. he kept in his class unless any problems came up. And but as a headmaster, he was really good. Now, Harry Taylor, he was a good teacher. He taught maths, he taught English, he taught us history in all sorts of manners. But he was in my mind, he was a very good teacher, but he was a bit lax because all the youths and students started, we used to have riots on in his class, and he used to bang chair and we will have silence, I will have silence, all that. But nobody took any notice. I think Mr. Dixon had a word with him and came in at certain times when all hell let loose, and I've got to say them words, and Mr. Dixon would come in and, quiet everybody, and he would shut him up. But as a person, he was a very good person. He was knowledgeable, and he taught me about history and different things, geography, and he was very good, yeah. He used to, what we call walk. Now, it isn't walking as we know it. It's that you walk without your feet leaving the ground. And you wriggle. And your whole body swings. And he used to walk to work from Exthorpe. And he used to walk back home. And in the playtime, he always used to walk round the playground or anywhere. I would like to just describe some of the school trips we went on. Now, some of the trips were educational, but a lot of the trips were what places we may work at after we left school. So we called it work familiarisation with it, familiarisation. But one of the trips we went to was, there were two firms on Watch House Lane. One were called Crittall Windows that made metal windows, and the other one were called Johnny Carr, who was South Yorkshire Woodworking Company. Now, one made wooden window frames, and the other one, Crittall, made metal windows. And I worked there a few years after. I went back as foreman joiner in the window shop. We made hundreds of windows for Doncaster Council. Now, another one we went on was Markham Main Colliery. We went down Markham Main Colliery, and I was really, really surprised. There were creaking, there were metal joists bent, and I asked a question, and we were told that it was the thousands and millions of tons of rock and that above that were pressing down on the support beams and everything. And it came back home 2 years later or so. One of my friends, Charlie Gardam, he was crushed, the pit at Edlington Colliery. That brought it home how bad it was down there. Anyway, after that, we went to a place called Briggs's Motor Bodies. That was down the bottom of Car Hill, right down the bottom, and they made Jowett Javelins and Jowett lorry cabs. We went round Briggs and they were making cars, as I say, and lorry cabs. We went on to a place on Weekly Hall Road called International Harvesters. Now, International Harvesters made an array of all farming equipment. They did balers, combined harvesters, tractors, everything. And we went round there and saw how they made them. And it was very interesting how each man put a little bit on, and at the end of the day, end of the line, a man drove it off. It was in full working order. It was really interesting. Another little place we went to Benberg's, a factory on Weekly Hall Road, and it was there, and what it specialised in was silk and rayon. Now it became well known because in the war they made all the materials for parachutes. Another trip we went on was to a big steelworks out on Sprotborough Road called Fowler's. It was a complete steel and iron works, and they used to make all big machinery. But in the war, they made tanks, all parts for tanks, and it got nicknamed the Tank Factory. Now, what we used to do there, we used to be able to go to Sprotborough and go into that factory, but coming back, there was a road across the road not far down. It used to be Harry Newton's fish shop on the corner. That road went down to the river, and we used to go across. There was a man there had a rowing boat, and there used to be a ferry there that took you across from that road across to Exthorpe for threepence. And all our class went across there on that little ferry at threepence a time. The next one we went to were Pilkington's Glassworks, and we went round there, and it was fantastic because they used to make molten cauldrons of glass, and they used to pour it out on tables and then flatten it. It was in massive great sheets, but what they did, they had a jig on it with a glass cutter, a big glass cutter, and it used to go across, and they used to be able to pull an handle on some big table, these big tables. The table lifted up and broke the glass into sections, and then it was made into sheets of glass, and it went to the polishing shop. But later on in years, I was the one that made those tables because they didn't last very long. This was more educational. We went to a place called Wentworth Woodhouse. Now, it was a massive house on the way to Barnsley Way. It was educational, showing you the people that lived in how they did in these magnificent houses and what made them, such as people living in squalor, working down pits and collieries for only pence, and they got these magnificent places to live in. We had a really good look at it, and it was really eye-opening the way that place was. After that, we went to York, and we went all the way around York. This was purely educational. But while we were there, being as I was interested in construction and building, I became very interested in how the cathedral and certain buildings were made. But we went in the cathedral, in fact, we had our last photograph taken on the mound at Clifford's Tower in 1950 with our class. And when we went back at the weekend, we broke up in July, and I started work next Monday in July 1950 at Walter Firth's on Armthorpe Road as an apprentice joiner on 11 farthing an hour for 48 hours a week. Anyway, what we did, we left school and we got on a bus and went to Hull. From Hull, we walked from down the pier and we got on a paddle, and they took us across the river to Barton-on-Humber. From there we got on a little tank engine with 2 coaches on, and we went to a place called Immingham. From Immingham we got on little green tram cars, and it was the Immingham and Grimsby Light Railway, the official name, but we all nicknamed them buggy cars. And we went from there into Grimsby, the old trolley buses, and they had 2 arms on wires above you. Went to Cleethorpes, we had an hour, was it, there at Cleethorpes, and we came back on a train from Cleethorpes to Doncaster, and it cost us £5. And it was very interesting, and we did that later on with our parents. I'll tell you a bit about Bruce Woodcock. He was a very, very good boxer, but I knew him better than that because he had 2 brothers, Billy and Malcolm. Bruce worked at the plant. Billy was a bricklayer and Malcolm went into Navy. But they all fought, they all did boxing. They all were boxers. And Malcolm fought under the name of Billy Joyce. Now, Bruce, as such, we were all very friendly because he only lived across the road from us. And we used to go playing ball with him, and balls upside the house. Across the road, they had an uncle, and he had a shop that sold everything. And his name was Billy Woodcock, and he had an eye patch. But going back to Bruce, he came to our house, and of course we were all friendly with him. He was just a family. We had a bit of a problem going to school. Now what happened was, there was I think they call him a stalker, and he even stalked the land girls up there, and he were causing problems because what we had to do, we had to walk up Car Hill along Balby Road, downside at Fairway Hotel, and then go through the back of the gardens and go that way to Oswin Avenue. It was the shortest. This stalker were there, or I don't know really how bad it was, but we were told, do not go. But Bruce Woodcock said, look, I'll take him to school, to my mum. So when he were on nights or anything like that, he took me to school. If he were on days, he couldn't do it because he were at work. But he took me to school quite a few times. But we used to all play games in the street, and when he came home after he'd won a fight, we decorated all the street up. And we all had photographs of him and stuff like that. Jean, my future wife, her dad was for featherweight as a boxer, and we have a belt that he won. But Bruce Woodcock used to go into Weekly Hall Road to my future wife's house and talk to her dad. We had very good relationship with him, and we had fun and everything, you know. He taught me, actually, because of my chest, he introduced me to weightlifting, which I did. And I think that helped me strengthen my chest up to make me better in time, you know. But he did all that. We saw him shadowboxing, but we never actually was allowed to watch him when he got to nitty-gritty. In actual fact, when he was training to fight away, he used to go to a big hall, a castle, in North Wales. And it's near a church called WWII, and do his training before he actually fought in ring and in real. We used to listen to his fights. Oh yeah, we always listened to his fight. As time went on, they introduced an inhaler, which I still use, but it enabled me to go on cross-country runs and also take part in sport like badminton and football and different things. Where my life improved was, we used to leave school at Oswin Avenue. We used to run down Oswin Avenue, over a railway bridge, right down onto the side, through the flats, right down to the side of the river, run along the river, and we used to go back up into the woods, and we used to go through a tunnel under the main railway line, what we call the Cuckoo Tunnel. Now, if you stood at one end and went cuckoo, it answered you back. Well, we ran through there, up the back of St. Peter's Road, and back to school. This inhaler enabled me to live a fuller life. I played football with it and badminton and stuff like that, and it's helped me quite a lot through my life. In fact, working out on buildings, it's been a blessing out there. I hope this film will explain a few facts of life that me as a person, I lived through the war with no father, no mother as such. We had to bring ourselves up. But basically, it was the Oswin Avenue teachers and our self-determination to survive that made us what we are, or what I am. I hope that you can, from the things I've achieved, will not deter anybody, no matter what your upbringing or your background, can stop you achieving great things, because I have done that. And as our school motto says, not as good as, better than.
If you would like to know more about the Ossie Through the Ages project, then please email me at tonyarmstrong1959 at outlook.com. Thank you.